Hello and welcome to Georgia Bulldogs Live here on the Georgia Voice of College Football. I'm your host, Matt Green. I appreciate everyone tuning in and everyone who's joining us live tonight. Join us live, jump in the live chat. Maybe I'll respond to you. We'll see. Maybe if you have good stuff, it's gotta be a good comment. But please like, share, and subscribe to our channel and all that good stuff. Really helps out our show. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt_W_Green. Also, you'll see me every Sunday night. Maybe not this Sunday night with the Super Bowl, but every Sunday night I'm on the Chase Thomas podcast. We do usually that twice a week during the season, probably once a week during the off season. But yeah, I appreciate everyone tuning in. So let's get started. So to start with, maybe this shouldn't be my lead story because I don't know all the details of it. I'm not a politician. I don't want to get political with the people here. But there was a bill introduced in the state of Georgia, in the Georgia state legislature, that would exempt NIL compensation from income tax, which, you know, as long as we're just giving out tax breaks to people, sure, let's help it make our college football team better. I think all the constituents would be down with that. I think I saw Andy Staples tweet about this, like, is this what the voters in the state of Georgia really want, or something along those lines? And it's like a way to get better players at the University of Georgia. That's exactly what the state of Georgia voters want. So that'd be interesting. I think it was interesting a couple years ago when the state of Missouri passed the high schoolers. So I mean, I think that definitely changed. And then you saw Williams Inuwari, as well as who's the other one? Luther Burden, number one player, 5-star in the state of Missouri 2 years in a row that they were able to get. And I imagine that didn't play no part in that. And I think Inuwari, I think he transferred to Nebraska this off season. Am I remembering that right? Is he already gone? Let me see. He was the number one player that was the 2023 class. Yeah, he's a Nebraska Cornhusker now. So who knows? Things change a lot. Oh man, John Green, I appreciate you tuning in on the live chat here. Said I'm not coming in clear. I hope that's not the case. My audio sounds fine on my end. But hopefully you guys can hear me. But to keep things moving, John Green, any coaching changes coming after National Signing Day tomorrow? I hope not, and I don't think Georgia's really in a position to, be. I don't think they have any openings right now, right, for the coaching, for the on-field spots. This is one of my biggest things, and we're not even going to talk much National Signing Day on the show this week because February National Signing Day is dead. It's so unfortunate. The first Wednesday of February used to be a national holiday for me, and I'd set my calendar, probably get the day off work, and ESPNU was usually good back in the day. Covering it. ESPN would be like nonstop, like 6-8 straight hours of coverage of National Signing Day. But you don't get that anymore. The last one, I think the last great one that I remember, I got to be a part of it when in 2016 went to Mecole Hardman's signing at Elbert County High School, and then to Derek Brown's signing at Lanier High School, which obviously Mecole Hardman chose the Dawgs, but Derek Brown ended up choosing Auburn. But yeah, it's just National Signing Day just doesn't have that same juice anymore. So that was the 2016 class. So I guess the 2017 was the true last National Signing Day, because 2018, that Justin Fields class, that was the first class of the early signing period, and Georgia had that ridiculous class with like 7 5-stars, which I think only half of them ended up at Georgia in the long run. But yeah, it's National Signing Day is crazy, and we're going to talk recruiting a little bit, but it's interesting how National Signing Day just isn't the event it once was. That's because of the early signing period. Even the early signing period, the National Signing Day, it's not like the February chaos just went to December. It's like there's obviously some of it, but just the overall vibe, the pageantry, like it seems like a lot of these guys more and more have decisions made, way before then. And maybe that's probably a good thing for coaches. Maybe not a great thing for us fans that want the compelling story. It is a good thing if you're a fan of one of the teams that's already got the big time recruit. The hay in the barn, if you will. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what Georgia's going to do. I don't think there's anyone that's Georgia's really looking at that's signing on February. And this is my biggest thing about the calendar. Like John, going back to John Green's question, asking about any coaching changes, is that I wish the calendar would just be so different, and the one national signing day would be in like March or something. You could still enroll early if you do all that and you have the academic qualifications and everything. But if it's in March, then no one has to be lying to the recruits they're recruiting, right? Like we sit here and pretend like the NFL isn't like the same, this what am I looking for? The same industry. Like they're in the same coaching carousel, if you will. So the NFL season is about to end next week, and yeah, there's already a lot of NFL coaching changes happening, but there's going to be so many things happening, and coordinators getting fired and hired, and what that does to college coaches that go to the NFL and all this. It's like the coaching carousel is going to open up again after the NFL season ends. And I wish you were giving these high schoolers all the information. Like we all remember the 2015 signing day with Roquan Smith. That's why he did not end up at UCLA, was because he got word that his linebacker coach, or maybe it was the D coordinator, I want to say, at UCLA was going to be hired by the Atlanta Falcons. Greatest hire the Atlanta Falcons have ever made, by the way. I am not a diehard Falcon fan here. You see the Bravos, you see the Dawgs in the back here. No Falcons really on my end, but that is the best hire that the Falcons ever made, as far as I'm concerned. It led to Roquan Smith ending up in the red and black, so that's the most important thing. But back to kind of some of the headlines on the week. Jackson Johnson chiming in here. What's up, Bulldog Nation? I appreciate you tuning in live, Jackson. Let me know if you got a question in the chat or something to chime in. I appreciate you tuning in. Colby Young, I think that's a big story that's happened this. And once again, I'm not a politician and I'm not a lawyer. Maybe I'm starting the show off not in my wheelhouse. But Colby Young, his charges, his battery and assault charges were dropped, and so he just pled I think no contest and misdemeanor disorderly conduct. So I think he has like a year of probation or something like that. I think all signs point to Colby Young being eligible in the 2025 season. So I talked about it when we were going through our potential depth chart for Georgia in 2025. Like this wide receiver room, if you add Colby Young to it, it all of a sudden was a weakness of the team a year ago. And like this could suddenly become a strength. Like you got Noah Thomas. I expect Noah Thomas to be the number one target, the Texas A&M transfer in this offense. But you got Colby Young, a big body. You saw what he could do, in the Clemson game. I think I think there did he have a touchdown in the Alabama game? Maybe the Clemson game was his only touchdown. But obviously, that late in that Alabama game when Carson Beck, when Georgia's trying to make one last shot at it, he throws one up to Colby Young and didn't put the ball where it needed to be, and it got intercepted in the end zone. But Colby Young is that red zone target, that big body, and that's what I feel like you've seen Georgia's teams have one of those guys almost every year. It's maybe he's not a burner, but he just goes up and makes contested catches. Whether it's go back to a Javon Wims or someone like that, or obviously a George Pickens was that to another level, but a Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, like guys that just make tough contested catches. Lawrence Cager was definitely one of those that Georgia got out of the portal. Like that's what Georgia was missing a year ago. And a big part of that is because of Colby Young, his absence, and as well as Ra Thomas's absence from Georgia's receiving core a year ago. So to get Colby Young back, like I said, you get Noah Thomas And then I think maybe Dylan Bell can now become that like third option. And you saw how good Dylan Bell can be when he's the third, fourth option in offense. Like this 2024 offense was elite. And Dylan Bell, I mean, he was maybe like option like 5 or 6, honestly, by the end of it. Like, I mean, you had Brett Bowers, McConkey, and Rosemy, Jack Saint. So, no, Dylan Bell made a lot of plays. I'll put it that way. And then you got Zachariah Branch, who's just a real gadget guy. And so have two just playmakers that you could potentially hand the ball to out of the backfield. And we've talked about Dylan Bell. Maybe this makes he plays even more snaps in the backfield at running back because of getting Colby Young back in this offense. But I think it allows Dylan Bell to be used in a more versatile way, as well as Zachariah Branch be that gadget athlete in the backfield behind the line of scrimmage. Like, just figure out ways to get him the ball. And then you got Nitro Tuggle, a guy who was a freshman a year ago that people are excited to see. And then from what you hear in winter workouts, just rumors to this point, but people are really excited about CJ Wiley and Taylon Taylor. So if either of those guys are an impact player in 2025, like suddenly this Georgia receiving core is looking a lot better. Jackson Johnson chiming in, 207 days until the start of the 2025 UGA season. I'm not sure how that made me feel. How that made me feel, Jackson. I think excited, but man, 207 days is it's a lot of days. And I'm not necessarily looking forward to waiting so long for Georgia football. Also in the chat here, John Green, where did Bear Alexander end up transferring to again? John Green, Google works. Come on now. I expect you better from that. But I believe Bear Alexander ended up at Oregon. Is that right? Yeah, he transferred to Oregon. Am I remembering that right? Okay, yeah. December 20th, 2024. Yeah, I'm your Google for this one time, John. Yeah, he's going to be at Oregon. So where was he? Georgia, USC, now Oregon, 4 different high schools, now 3 different colleges. Bear Alexander, I thought he had some promise after playing some in 2022 at Georgia as a true freshman, but man, for what Georgia, the proof of concept that was in Georgia's defensive line room, and to want to leave that for USC and Lincoln Riley, to each their own. I'm gonna question your decision making as far as that goes. Let's go. What else do we have in the headlines? Matt Rule. I don't know if you guys saw this. Matt Rule is talking about canceling Nebraska's spring game this year. And I think this is only a matter of time. I think you're going to see the spring game get canceled at other places as well. For one, just, I don't know, something about, I guess we don't have a lot. There shouldn't be a lot of turnover post spring, but just these rosters, with the way teams are having to fill rosters and everything, I wonder at times if you're going to have enough players to play a spring game. But also, I think Lane Kiffin saw this coming. I think Lane Kiffin saw the future, that maybe that's what it'll be. Like when in terms of like a midnight madness thing, you see college basketball programs do. They do like a dunk contest, maybe do something fun with the men and women's basketball players, one of these shooting contests or something, 3-point shootout or something. And then you scrimmage a little bit. Like, I think maybe you'll see some flag football or something. You saw Lane Kiffin with the dunk contest. I think it's that sort of thing is the future, because Matt Rule, his point is like, I'm going to be, and Nebraska was the 4th, it's like 67,000 people showed up their spring game, like the 4th highest attended spring game in the country a year ago. That's all they got in Nebraska. So they don't be talking about taking that spring game. They need a little taste. I think that's what that it is for all of us. Like Jackson Johnson in the chat talking about 207 days away. That spring game was just like a little taste. Like, let's all get back in the stadium. It's been a few months. Just a little taste. But yeah, I think you saw last year at Georgia's spring game, Andrew Paul had a pretty good game in the spring game, and it's not like he got poached by an SEC school, but I think Jacksonville State is where he ended up. So, I think you are, to Matt Rule's point, you're kind of just putting your guys on display of like, hey, here's here's some of the quality players we have at third, fourth string. And in this era we live in of tampering, of legal tampering, whatever you want to call it, like the transfer portal, like you kind of want to keep it as close to the vest as you can if you think you have a good player coming into 2020 into that whatever season. So maybe it's a little paranoid on Matt Rule's part, but I definitely see where he's coming from, and I think Lane Kiffin was ahead of the curve on this one. Let's see, John chiming in the chat here again. Do you think that spring game will be against other teams? Could be a lot of money made. I think that's definitely a possibility. Like if you're going to play it, I think that's only a possibility if we're talking long term, like post super conference type stuff. Like the Big Ten and SEC become, whatever we do, whatever the future becomes in the Power 5 kind of, or Power 4 kind of branches off from the rest of the sport, and we have like the 60 programs or so playing legit FBS football, and everyone else is on another tier, playing in their own classification, which I don't hate. By the way, like it's I love watching Marshall and Toledo play as much as the next guy, but to pretend that those teams and Middle Tennessee State are playing the same sport as Georgia and Alabama, it's not realistic. So I think down the line, if there's eventually a split, which how professionalized these college sports are becoming, it feels like the split, and just how many changes we've had in this damn sport in the last like decade is just insane. If you go back to 2012 and you told someone what college football looked like right now, you would blow their mind. But so with all the changes that have happened in the sport, I think it feels inevitable that there's going to be some sort of, if you're playing legit power college football, maybe there's no Power 4, no Power 3, it's just Power 4, power college football. If you're going to be one of those teams, like 60 or however many teams they end up with, I think you could see the spring game turn into that's your FCS game. That's your Nicholls State game. It happens that paycheck game potentially happens in the spring, and you just get rid of that in the regular season, because I don't want to get rid of those programs. I don't think Georgia Southern should cease to exist. But if you're one of these programs that's one of these small tier programs, it doesn't excite me as a college football fan when I see one of those teams, on a schedule like Marshall. That's Georgia season opener next year. Like that just doesn't get you going the way the Clemson season opener does. Like, sorry, not sorry. Like that's just the reality. But I do have to issue one apology here on the show today. I went on and on. I was very negative last week's. Was that last week or last 2 weeks episodes? I've been very negative. So I'm going to be more positive on this show. And first, I have to issue an apology. I said that this is the most unproven roster I can ever remember coming into a Georgia football season, and that every year you at least have a couple guys that are preseason All-Americans for Georgia, or there's a couple guys that could be like preseason All-Americans. There's definitely a handful that are getting first round draft talk. And I have to issue an apology because ESPN just came out with their way too early All-American predictions. And at the punter spot is Brett Thorson from the University of Georgia. It feels like they got all the way through their predictions, and they were like, wait, we don't have one Georgia guy on here, but put Thorson on there. No, Brett Thorson, I think he's a stud. I was surprised he wasn't an All-American this past year. He's a really good punter for Georgia. But yeah, so maybe I'm wrong. Georgia is getting one All-American hype this offseason, and it is the punter for the Aussie Brett Thorson, getting some All-American love from ESPN. Okay. So as I said, we're going to keep it positive on the show today. We are going to go talk about recruiting. So My UGA recruiting wish list. This is where we're gonna start things off. Let's keep it positive. I was being a negative Nancy, negative Nelly. I don't know, Debbie Downer. One of those alliterative downer terms. So this is my recruiting wish list for the 2026 class. So first and foremost, let's just get it right out of the way here. Jared Curtis at the quarterback position. It feels like Jared Curtis feels like he's become a must get in this 2026 class. Like, because of the way Georgia has recruited in recent years, it's almost felt like it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. You plug in the quarterback with what George's got on the talent around him, like you'll be fine. And then you saw last year where we didn't have the talent just all around the quarterback. The quarterback was doing what he could despite the talent around him. It felt like at times last year. So I look at Jared Curtis and we got Gunnar Stockton. Maybe Gunnar Stockton comes in, he's all conference, and Georgia doesn't skip a beat, or maybe Georgia improves from what they were a year ago. Hopefully they improve what they were a year ago. But Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback in the 2026 class from Nashville, Tennessee, former commit of Georgia, but it felt like he was one, as soon as he decommitted, it was like, I really respect that kind of decommitment. Like, he's not committed, so he decommitted. That doesn't mean that Georgia is not in the running anymore. So I think for that, I you might, if you're gonna take visits all over the place, you might as well not be committed. So, but Georgia was never out of it as long as he's in the process, right? So Mike Bobo is really close to Curtis in this recruitment. So, I know Georgia fans have their opinions about Bobo, but if he helps land the number one quarterback in the country, maybe some of the pressure gets off him a little bit. Probably not, but maybe. And then the number one and number two offensive tackles in the country, number one and two players in the country. And I think Jared Curtis is the third ranked player. Is that right? Is he third or fourth? I want to say currently in the rankings, he's fourth. So Jackson Cantwell, number one player in the country, just released his top six that had Georgia in it. Emmanuel Iheanacho out of Virginia. Or is he from Maryland? Yeah, he's out of Maryland, out of Baltimore. Number two player in the country. Like, Georgia has had and this is what I kind of alluded to, last week. That Georgia's had so many elite, just prototype NFL offensive linemen come through during the Kirby Smart era, and this past year you just didn't really have any of those. Jared Wilson getting second round love this year, but you just haven't really. They don't really have the Amarius Mims, the Andrew Thomas, the Isaiah Wilson type. So getting a Jackson Cantwell, Emmanuel Iheanacho, to one of those just like prototype offensive linemen, like you need big bodies in the trenches, and Georgia definitely needs to improve the offensive line. So I'm definitely putting those guys at the top of my list. Then the next one, Tyler Atkinson out of Grayson here in Loganville, Georgia. I say here because I'm like, that's probably like 20 minutes away from me. So this Tyler Atkinson, only five-star linebacker from Grayson, like I said, from the state of Georgia, only 5-star from the state of Georgia in this class, which is kind of shocking. You go back in Caleb Downs' class, actually in 2023, also only had 1 5-star. But you go back, I mean, last year, four or 5 stars. 2024, there was 4. 2022, there was 4. 21, there was 4. 2020, there was 4. 2019 and 2018, you had 6 5-stars in that class. 3 in 2017, and then 5 in 2016. So, like, you're usually having a handful of 5-stars in the state of Georgia every year. And this year, Tyler Atkinson is the only one. So, things can change between now and signing day and their final rankings and everything like that. But I found that to be very interesting. Like, and if you look at if there's one position that Georgia has had success with when it comes to 5-stars coming out of the state of Georgia, it's been that linebacker position. You signed Zayden Walker in this past year's class, Smile Munden a couple years ago before that, and then I guess you go back to like 2018, Quay Walker and Adam Anderson in that class. But Georgia's landed almost all the 5-star linebackers out of the state. I think just Sammy Brown, Barrett Carter, and Owen Papo are the only ones I could find that I think Georgia hasn't landed in the last 7-8 years or 8 or 9 years, I think. So I like Georgia's chances when it comes to landing the top linebacker in the state, top linebacker in America, I believe. Tyler Atkinson, 9th overall player in On3's industry rankings. Because I saw a stat, like one of these graphics for the Super Bowl, and it was like the players from each state, like the state with the most players playing in the Super Bowl, and Georgia was a close fourth. I think they had was it 6 or 8 players in the Super Bowl? They were right behind Texas, Florida, and California, like most things, like just 3 states that are just way bigger than Georgia, just are barely producing more NFL players. In some years, not producing as many NFL players or as many 4 and 5-star prospects. It's insane the talent that comes out of the state of Georgia. But I think people saw that graphic and they are like, oh yeah, Georgia with so many, because the Eagles have all those Georgia players. But then I started thinking, like, where are all those Eagles players from? All those Eagles players that from Georgia. Jordan Davis is from North Carolina. Jalen Carter's from Florida. Nakobe Dean's from Mississippi. Keely Ringo's from Arizona. Nolan Smith's from Georgia, but he's an IMG guy, so I don't even know if he's counted as Florida or Georgia. I think they've started counting IMG guys from the state that they were previously from. Like, I think I saw that. Who was it that committed recently? Some guy from California. But he was counted as a California recruit, even though he's from IMG. And Ellis Robinson, I think, was a Connecticut guy before going to IMG. But so Nolan Smith is the only one. And the Eagles just signed Lewis Cine recently. And so Lewis Cine's Texas. So for all those Eagles players from Georgia, none of those are really from the state of Georgia, which I thought was kind of crazy. But then at the running back position is the next one I go to on my wish list, because it feels like Georgia so many times Georgia would recruit 2 good running backs in a class, whether it's, like a Keith Marshall, Todd Gurley in the same class, Sony Michel and Nick Chubb in the same class, Zamir White and James Cook in the same class. And you even go back to like Thomas Brown and like Danny Ware in the same class, right? Not quite hit the same as the other ones, but some damn good players. Georgia has not been at that running back U level, I think, in a couple years. Like, it hasn't been a lot, but just, I think DeAndre Swift was the last like truly elite running back Georgia had. Like, obviously James Cook is like there's kind of some revisionist history about James Cook. I guess you could argue that he wasn't used right or something when he was at Georgia. And Zamir White got just as many carries as him, and maybe he shouldn't have been. But I feel like James Cook has also gotten a lot better since going to the NFL. So it's kind of twofold. Like, it's kind of how Tennessee fans like retroactively criticize the coaches for how they used Alvin Kamara. And it's like, you kind of forget, it's like, yeah, but Jaden Hurd was actually like pretty good ahead of Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara just had a very specific skill set. That's kind of what James Cook was. That was actually my comparison for James Cook going into his senior year. And he damn near did exactly what Alvin Kamara did in his final year at Tennessee. And he's starting to do what Alvin Kamara has done in the NFL. This guy's just, I will say James Cook has been a lot better in the NFL than I was expecting. Like, I expected James Cook to be a good NFL player because of kind of how dynamic he was at receiving, and thought that would be like a big, like the NFL game more suited his skill set better. I underestimated how good of a just a between the tackles running back this guy is. Like, he's been really good for the Bills here in his 3 years in the NFL. But I got off on a tangent. This isn't about James Cook. This is about Georgia getting back to that running back U level. And James Cook's mom, not to bring it back to James Cook, James Cook's mom was very vocal about wanting Cook to play with another elite running back in his class, and they signed Zamir White, and it turned out to be perfect. And to kind of save his legs for the NFL. And man, she looks like a pretty smart lady right now. And Dalvin Cook had some great years in college, but I think he was kind of, worn down by year 3 or 4 in the NFL. And I don't think that same thing is going to happen to James Cook. But all that to say, let's get back to the running back position. The number 1 and number 2 running backs in the country this year both have Georgia on their mind. I think Savion Hyder out of the state of Virginia, this guy's 5'11", close to 6 feet, 190, and Derek Cooper out of the state of Florida, out of Chaminade, he's about 6'1", 190. So I need to see Georgia doing the running back U thing again. It's funny how Georgia fans complained about, we need to pass the ball more, and now after a couple years of passing and not winning championships, it was like, let's get back to running the damn ball, Bobo. So I think Savion Hyder and Derek Cooper, if Georgia's able to get one, if not both of these guys, I know both of these guys might be a pipe dream, but hey, this is my wish list, sir, and I get to do what I want, or ma'am, whoever's listening out there. But yeah, if Georgia was able to bring in a duo like Derek Cooper and Savion Hyder, I'd be absolutely thrilled with that. Sign me up right now. Next on my wish list, let's go to the tight end position. I'm going to start with Mark Bowman, and not the MLB writer. This is a guy who's from Mater Dei, from the state of California. Was a class of 2027 guy. He's reclassified to the 2026. And I will start with this. I am never going to compare anyone to Brock Bowers. As far as that's concerned, I'll never compare anyone to probably Brock Bowers, Jalen Carter, or Roquan Smith. Is that just like a declaration just right off the top? I'm never going to compare any recruit to any of those guys. If they have 2 amazing years at Georgia, I might start to throw out some comparisons like that. Nakobe Dean wasn't Roquan, but he was damn good. But those guys, as far as I'm concerned, Brock Bowers, Jalen Carter, Roquan, those are going to be the best guys at that position that we ever see play at Georgia. So that with that caveat, Mark Bowman is not Brock Bowers, but apparently he basically idolizes Brock Bowers. Wears number 19. Not sure if it's a Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes type of situation. Hopefully it doesn't go to that level. But he's from the state of California, wears number 19, kind of models his game after Bowers. He is supposed to be a very dynamic athlete, 6'4", 220 right now, and a guy who's a junior in high school. I guess a guy who should be a sophomore, sophomore rising junior, and instead he is a junior and he will be a senior next year. So, or next school year. So Mark Bowman, I'm definitely getting excited about that guy. If you just tease the word Brock Bowers to me, my ears perk up. So I really want to get this guy, as well as Caden Prothrow. He's a top 50 recruit in this class out of the state of Georgia. And you've seen some crystal ball predictions for Georgia for him as well. So if Georgia can continue that big time history of tight end recruiting, they signed Ethan Barbour and Elias Williams in this last class. I got a dog whining behind me. A few people can see him here, but hopefully it doesn't disturb everybody. But yeah, so if Georgia's just, no one's recruited the tight end position the way Georgia has. So it's like if they sign 2 more good ones in 2026, I don't think that would surprise anybody. Next one on my list is Ryan Mosley out of Carrollton. This dude's a dynamic athlete. I think he's listed at athlete on 3. I think 24/7 lists him as a wide receiver, but 6'2", 205 athlete. Like, I think that's a dynamic kind of guy that's making plays after the catch, and like 6'2", 205 is built for a high schooler, for a junior, rising senior. So that kind of skill set really excites me. And then the last one is Cam Brooks out of Thomasville. Really, at the end of the day, edge rusher, top 100 player from the state of Georgia. Like, you can never have too many edge rushers. You look at Georgia You look at what Georgia's dealing with going into 2025 to lose Chaz Chambliss and Jalen Walker in the same year, as well as Damon Wilson and a couple transfers. So, it's that edge. You can never have enough guys that get after the quarterback. You see what the NFL values. They value quarterbacks. They value guys who can protect the quarterback, and they value guys who can get to the quarterback. And you can never have enough edge rushers, as far as I'm concerned. So, also love to get a big time recruit out of South Georgia. Like I'm never going to turn that down. But yeah, that's my recruiting wish list for the 2026 class. If Georgia signs half of those guys, I think we'll all be pretty happy. And let's change it up. I'm gonna change it up with the segment. So we're staying positive on tonight's show. And this segment is the former Georgia player that I would add to the 2025 roster. And this comes with a caveat as well. It's just a fun exercise. We're here to have fun. It's February, I should say. We're getting closer to the season. The caveat is no quarterback, just too easy. And then, like I previously stated, Jalen Carter, Brock Bowers, Roquan Smith, they're always the right answer. So I'm going to exclude those guys, and then I'm going to exclude the quarterback position. So these are the kind of former player. And I was trying to go like some deep cuts here, not anything like crazy, but I'm not trying to go like the low hanging fruit. There we go. I got confused. You'd be shocked at how you can get confused about a saying you say all the time once you're on camera. But yeah, low hanging fruit. Try to stay away from that. So see if you can follow me on some of these. First on my list, I had a former dog that I would add to this 2025 roster, and obviously the biggest aspect of this thought exercise is what the 2025 roster needs, right? And the first guy I look at is Jamari Sawyer. Like Jamari Sawyer, for one, I think this team's kind of lacking some of that senior leadership that, there's just not a lot of those proven upperclassmen. So he would help a lot there. But also, I don't know who Georgia's best offensive linemen are right now. Like, I don't know if it's the guard. I don't know if it's the tackles. I don't know if it's the center. I feel like Freeling and Ernest Green feel like the two most proven at the tackle spots. So maybe you slide Sawyer into guard. Maybe those guards actually turn out to be proven. Ernest Green has some more injuries like he did a year ago, and you need Sawyer at tackle. Go to Sawyer at tackle. And then also, Drew Bobo is a first-year starter at the center spot. Jamari Sawyer was like a second-string center. I want to say, I'm pretty sure when I saw him play in high school, he was playing center. I might be mistaken there. I think he's always recruited as an interior offensive lineman. And I think center was on the in the cards for him. And he never ended up playing center, but I think he was like on the depth chart, second or third string at center. I could be making that up, but I'm pretty sure he was. Someone can look it up and fact check me here in the comments. But so for those three reasons, I think just Jamari Sawyer's versatility and his the senior leadership, I think that's a guy I would really like to have on a roster like this. So that's where I'm starting off. And then if you want to just take the low-hanging fruit, yeah, give me Andrew Thomas. Put Andrew Thomas. And honestly, I might should put Andrew Thomas in the Brock Bowers, Jalen Carter, Roquan conversation, because Andrew Thomas just came in. That guy was a legit prototype NFL offensive lineman. Second overall pick. Just came in, started right tackle. Just absolute stud as a true freshman. 2 years at left tackle, absolute stud. And then second overall pick in the draft. Like, he's just one of those guys. He was like a known commodity the entire time he was at Georgia. Like he's the closest thing I saw to like a finished product as a freshman, as like since probably like AJ Green. Like AJ Green, obviously he can get a little bigger, but he didn't get that much bigger. He was always pretty skinny, but he felt like he was as good as he ever was going to be from day one. Andrew Thomas, and that's not even a knock on him. I think Andrew Thomas was just an NFL offensive lineman as a true freshman. Like that guy was just an absolute stud. So that would be the low hanging fruit version of that answer. My next answer is Azeez Ojulari. I think Azeez Ojulari is one of the more underrated Georgia players in recent history. You look at, for one, the 2018 year that he missed due to the ACL. Then he comes out. I think he plays the bowl game, or maybe like the last game of the season or something that year. And then 2019, he was just a stud pass rusher. I think close to 10 sacks, if not 10 sacks that year. And then I think the 2020 season is just kind of a forgotten season for a lot of people. And like we talked about that 2021 Georgia defense, it's like that 2020 defense had all of the same guys on it, plus Azeez Ojulari and Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell, like, and Richard LeCount. Like, the 2020 team just kind of had everything. And Jalen Carter was an impact guy as a true freshman as well on that defensive line. So Azeez Ojulari he had 10.5 sacks in a shortened 2020 season against all SEC competition. I think Azeez Ojulari gets forgotten about on just how good he really was. And I think that's one of this team's biggest needs is an edge rusher, just like a true edge rusher that can get after the quarterback. And Azeez Ojulari was just so well rounded. He was and then you only got the 2 years out of him too, unfortunately, because of the injury as a freshman. So Azeez Ojulari, I feel like had one of those UGA careers that's kind of not appreciated for how good he really was. And the other along those lines, maybe the lower hanging fruit, this might be a deep pull for some Georgia fans, but it's Justin Houston. Like, Justin Houston was that same type of pass rusher. That was before Georgia moved to their more 3-4, but I mean, no one's even really playing a 3-4 anymore. With everyone has 5 defensive backs on the field at all times these days. So Justin Houston was a guy who could get after the quarterback. Like, he's like the highest paid defensive end of all time, I think, at one point. But then the best pass rusher in recent history that Georgia's had is definitely Jarvis Jones. Like, double-digit sacks his 2 seasons. If Georgia could add just a true, freak off the edge that can just figure out how to get to the quarterback, that's what this team needs, just about as much as anything, I think, in 2025. And then the running back position, obviously there's a lot of angles you could go with if you want to add a running back for Georgia. I think DeAndre Swift, if you put him on this team, maybe not the best complement to Nate Frazier because they're 2 guys that kind of play a similar style. But having a guy like DeAndre Swift with an unproven quarterback that can help in the pass game, catching the ball out of the backfield, as well as, DeAndre Swift was just an absolute stud. Like, DeAndre Swift's one of my favorite Georgia players. As soon as I saw Georgia recruiting a running back coming out of Philadelphia named DeAndre Swift, and then you showed me his dad owns a gym, and he's just the most diesel dude you've ever seen. Like, sign me up, DeAndre Swift every day. So I think he would be a big time addition because I think Trevor Etienne is kind of a poor man's version of DeAndre Swift, to be honest. Like, and not even being disrespectful, I think he's kind of that same versatile, squatty guy who can get tough yards, but also that versatile out of the backfield that can make guys miss in open space. So I was really excited about Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier duo in this backfield in 2025. So disappointed to see Etienne going to the NFL, and you saw the Senior Bowl. He's already creating some buzz from what he did last week. So, and then the easy answer, the low-hanging fruit version of DeAndre Swift is Todd Gurley. Give me Todd Gurley. He's like the best Georgia offensive player of my lifetime. I think it's safe to say Todd Gurley would have won the Heisman, absolutely robbed in 2014. And for something that's now just part of the game, signing autographs, making money. Unfortunately, Todd, and especially you talk about an inexperienced quarterback that needs some help out of the backfield. I don't think people realize what Todd Gurley did out of the backfield, like in college or the pro, like in terms of receiving. Like, I think he's really underrated as far as a receiving threat. Like, you look at a fun fact for you could probably, win some money in bars. I don't know if people are still even having had these conversations in bars because everyone's got Google on their phone. But if you tell someone that Todd Gurley only had one 1,000-yard season at Georgia, they might argue with you. And that's a fun fact for you. Not as fun. I guess that's a non-fun fact because he had 989 as a sophomore when he missed like 3 or 4 games, and then 911 in 2014, and he only played 6 games. Like, this guy was on the way to like a 1,700-yard, 1,800-yard Heisman type season. 9 touchdowns that year in just 6 games. But in 2013, he had 989 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns. He also had 37 catches for 441 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. So 17 total touchdowns as a freshman, 16 as a sophomore, and is probably on his way to about 20 something as a junior. Like, Todd Gurley is short list best college running back I've ever seen with my 2 eyes. We don't have to have that conversation. Maybe we can have that conversation at a different point. But Todd Gurley was just so damn good. And to have a guy like that, I think Georgia is going to need some of these running backs to step up in 2025 because Nate Frazier, we feel confident on what Nate Frazier, looks like he's going to be. But at the running back spot, you're going to need 2 or 3 guys to contribute. Cash Jones has played some, more as a receiving threat, more as a pass protector. You're going to need to see one of those guys in a crowded room emerge as that number 3 guy in this running back room. And then the last one on my list, just because he's one of my favorite dogs of all time, and I think this defense is kind of missing a guy like him, is Javon Bullard. Like, just that absolute heat-seeking missile in the secondary. Javon Bullard was just always in the right place at the right time. Dan Jackson had some of that heat-seeking missile action to him, but whether it's the star position, the safety position, I don't know if Javon Bullard was better in 2022 or 2023, to be honest. Like, I loved having him in that star position so much. Like, he was such an impact player in the that short passing game, and as well against the run. Javon Bullard, man, that dude is just a dog. So I think the safety position, you've seen Georgia's address that position in the transfer portal, bringing in Harris from Miami, Maddox from UAB, and then Zion Branch, Zachariah's brother, out of USC. I think one of those guys is probably going to end up. I think Janelle Aguero is the starter at star. So I think one of those guys is going to end up playing opposite of KJ Bolden at the other starting safety spot. It remains to be seen which one that is. But yeah, that's my wish list. Jamari Sawyer, Azeez Ojulari, DeAndre Swift, Javon Bullard. If we could add one of those guys to this team, I might feel a little bit better going into 2025. But man, I'm starting to feel a little weird about 2025. Like, I'm the guy that's like not as confident, and then I'm seeing the national people just Georgia preseason number 1, Georgia preseason number 2. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I've set the bar too high for Kirby Smart, and we might not be as to the Georgia standard, but we might still be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in college football next year. Georgia doesn't have to be better than 2021 or 2022 to win a national championship. We always have to remind ourselves of that. And then the last 2 things I'll leave you folks with here. The basketball snapshot. Georgia basketball 15-7 on the season, 3-6 in the conference. Got absolutely smoked by the Alabama Crimson Tide this past weekend. I guess it was close for a half, but 90-69 final score. They're 3-6 in the conference, lost 5 of the last 6. But however, Joe Lunardi still has Georgia as an 11 seed in his most recent bracketology that was released today. Has Georgia as one of the last 8 teams in, so not even one of the last 4. They're in that next group. So I think Georgia should feel good about where they're at. They have 9 games left on this season. 5 of those are versus ranked opponents. I think if you go 5-4 versus that stretch, end up 20-11 going into a conference tournament. I think that's a team that could end up in the NCAA tournament. I think this SEC schedule, this SEC this year is it's just ridiculous. You still have another matchup with Auburn, still another matchup with Florida on the schedule. But upcoming this week, you got LSU tomorrow and then Mississippi State this weekend, both in Stegman. So you've got to have wins at these two at home before you go on the road a couple more times before the end of the season. So that's the basketball snapshot. We'll see how the Dawgs can finish the year, and I will actually be in attendance on Saturday versus the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So hopefully they put together a good performance. And then the last thing I'll leave the folks with is trivia question. Your trivia question, and feel free to chime in on the live chat here with your answer. But do you know what school has the most Super Bowl MVPs of all time? I think you probably guessed, since I'm asking the question. That would be the Georgia Bulldogs. But I will give you points if you chime in the chat with the three guys that have won Super Bowl MVP, that the three former Georgia Bulldogs that have won Super Bowl MVP. I will shout you out if you give me that answer. Sony Michel is one that he scored the only touchdown in the Super Bowl that year the Patriots beat the Rams, but did not win Super Bowl MVP. And then also my guy Stafford. For those of you who don't know, like I said earlier, I am not a Falcons fan. I was a Lions fan, low-key Lions fan for a year. I'm a Stafford guy through and through. Quarterbacks are measured on team success. So at the end of the day, the team I want to have the most success is the team that Matthew Stafford plays for, the only Georgia quarterback in the NFL. And that was going to change, with Carson Beck. We'd have Beck, Stetson, Stafford. Fromm, I guess, is technically still in the NFL. But Beck's a Miami guy now, so we can't rep him. But yeah, Stafford is the only quarterback to ever throw 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl and not win Super Bowl MVP. He was absolutely robbed. Cooper Kupp, great game, great season and everything. But yeah, Stafford was hosed, put together the last minute drive and threw 3 touchdowns to win the Super Bowl. Couldn't get the award. What can you do? Also the no-look throw. People love to give Mahomes the credit for that. Stafford's been doing the no-look stuff forever. Also, fun fact for you, the number 1 and number 2 receiving seasons in NFL history were Calvin Johnson and Cooper Kupp. The one thing those guys have in common, Matthew Stafford was their quarterback. That's all I'm saying. Not saying Stafford's a Hall of Famer, but, I think he is. But yeah, so Stafford was the other one. No one chimed in on the live chat, so I guess I got to just give the answer here. Jake Scott of the 72 Dolphins won Super Bowl MVP. Terrell Davis, either the first one, I think the first one, 97 or 98, the one against the Packers, I think is the one that Terrell Davis won Super Bowl MVP. And then Hines Ward won the Super Bowl MVP for the Steelers against the Seahawks. I think that was 05, 06. I stopped remembering Super Bowls at like 40. And I think that was Super Bowl 40. Hines Ward, the Seahawks. Like, I remember the Super Bowls, like, I don't know, it's like 30 to 40 I'm on point with. But what is that, like my 7 to 17 years old or something like that on this planet. I just aged myself there. Yeah, I could keep up with the Super Bowl then, but now I think we're on Super Bowl 57 or something like that. I don't know. The numbers are getting crazy. It keeps going. It keeps going up. But yeah, so Georgia players have a lot of success in the Super Bowl. Maybe we can see another one do it. I would say, offensive players are usually more likely to win the award, so doesn't bode well for the Eagles that are just covered with Georgia players on that defense. So we'll see what happens. But Jalen Carter, if I'm picking a Georgia player to do it, I'm picking Jalen Carter. I think this guy's a one-man wrecking crew on the defensive line. And maybe they're able to get it done. But, against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I don't know. Hard to bet against the Chiefs. So, but I'll be obviously pulling for the Dogs. Unfortunately, Nakobe Dean still not healthy for that game. I don't believe. I think he's out the rest of the way. Let's see. One last live chat here. John Green chiming in. Do you realize Carson Beck is making more money than Leonard Hamilton, who just resigned from FSU at $2.5 million annually? Yeah, that's a pretty crazy stat. Leonard Hamilton, one of the more underrated coaches in college basketball the last like 20 years. Like Florida State has been really solid a lot of those years. They even hung the banner. What was it in 2020 when the tournament got canceled? They're like, we were ranked like 7th this year. Like we were really good, and we deserve some sort of accolade of that. We would have hung a banner for making the Sweet 16 or something. So let's just pretend we did. But no, I guess I did realize that. I guess no, I did not realize that. I did not know Leonard Hamilton was making that much less than Carson Beck. That's pretty ridiculous. Carson Beck, I've said plenty of times, Georgia fans, just prepare yourselves. He's probably going to have a good season, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of talk about why couldn't he do this at Georgia? I don't know. I'm just prepare yourself. Hopefully Gunner's even better, and we don't even have to talk about it. But yeah, I tried to keep it positive. John Green trying to bring down the negative. You're trying to bring down that negative frame of thinking. I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna keep it positive. But I appreciate everyone who tuned in on the live and everyone who's chimed in on the live chat today. Appreciate everyone watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Once again, I am your host, Matt Green, and this has been Georgia Bulldogs Live here on the Georgia Voice of College Football. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, go Dogs.